Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to thank you for being here with me this afternoon. Your participation is highly appreciated. All of us here work with children, and we can all agree that they each have their own personalities. They have their own uniqueness. They're special in their own way. And it's because of the way they are that they each have different learning styles. And it's important to understand a child's learning style because if we do know the way they learn, they can have a greater learning experience. Currently, there are 7 learning styles. However, with younger children, 3 learning styles are the ones typically used. The primary learning styles are the following: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, which is also known as tactile learners. And in regards to these learning styles, an article from Dartmouth University titled Tips for Educators on Accommodating Different Learning Styles was published. And in this article, the different learning styles are broken down and their characteristics are described. According to the article, someone with a visual learning style has a preference for seen or observed things. So, children that are visual, they learn better with pictures, videos, or lots of modeling. If you try to speak to them, give them verbal directions, they won't comprehend it as easily as other children do. They require, like I said before, pictures and videos and a lot of modeling. Now, in regards to auditory learning children, the article states, someone with an auditory learning style has a preference for the transfer of information through listening, through the spoken words of self or others, of sounds and noises. These children are actually much more different than children that learn visually because all you have to do is speak to them. They can work with instructions. They can work just by listening to what you have to tell them once. They don't have to be told through pictures or other methods. Now, with the kinesthetic and tactile learning style, the article reports, and I quote, someone with a kinesthetic learning style has a preference for physical experience, touching, feeling, holding, doing practical hands-on experiences. With these children, just like the article reports, it's better to do hands-on activities. These children tend to have a lot more energy, and they require learning with hands-on experiences. So they probably won't sit through a lecture. They won't listen with, if you speak to them, if you give them verbal directions, they won't follow through as much. They need to actually be involved in the activity that you're doing with them. Now, an article from Kidspot.com also described important notes about each of these learning styles. For visual learners, the article stated, telling these learners how to do something may not make sense to them at all. They need to see it. Sometimes we think that visual students aren't grasping it, they don't understand. The truth is that they're simply not learning through spoken instruction. They need a visual. You need to have pictures, you need to have a video, you need to model to these children how they need to do what is required of them to do. Auditory learners are quite different. The article states, auditory learners might look like they're not paying attention when you talk to them, but their listening skills are more developed than their visual skills. I actually relate to this learning style because when I was younger, I would seem like I wasn't paying attention, but in fact I was. Everything that was being said, I was actually obtaining the information. And when questions were asked, I was able to respond because I am an auditory learner. The same thing happens, with children. They may seem distracted, they may seem as they're not paying attention, but in reality, all the information, they are grasping it, they are understanding it. Now, with kinesthetic and tactile learners, the article made an interesting statement, which is, these type of learners can be misdiagnosed as ADHD or troublemakers because the more traditional visual or auditory learning styles just don't work for them. As I stated previously, children that are kinesthetic learners tend to have more energy. And because of this, sometimes they can be mistaken for ADD, deficit in attention, when in fact, they simply just cannot learn visually. They cannot learn by listening to a direction. They need to experience the hands-on. These children, they're better to work with hands-on activities. Let's say, for example, you're trying to teach a child the alphabet. They will not grasp it by you just telling them like certain children do. They don't need pictures of the alphabet. What you can do as a suggestion is put little magnet alphabets in sand, tell them to find them, and that's how you slowly explain to them. The fact that they're engaging in the activity is going to help them learn. There are some interesting statistics about these different learning styles. According to Lake Superior State University, concerning the visual learner, approximately 65% of the population learns visually. Visual learners do take up the most population. Now, for auditory learners, approximately 30% of the population tends to retain information after hearing it. And for kinesthetic learners, approximately 5% of the population picks things up through touch or imitation. Like said before, each learning style has its own uniqueness, and it's important to know that each child can learn. Sometimes we are not teaching them the way they need to be taught, as they have their own ways of doing things. When we learn these learning styles, we can help our children have better learning experiences. They all require their individual way of learning, but one thing is certain with all these children. When we are able to meet the learning style, they will have a successful learning experience. Thank you all for your attention this afternoon. Have a good afternoon.